judge and commentator Ryan Lantain. Now, Ryan, yesterday we had a pretty interesting qualifying session. We had a little bit of wet conditions, some dry conditions, some mixed conditions, really changed the dynamic up. But we came out overall with a somewhat of a completed full field. We have 26 drivers, so there's going to be a few buys. Many from the mechanicals. We had one or two, I think, double zeros.
Yep.
But now that we have that done and we're moving into the top, if you could give an overview of what you guys are looking for in the tandem competition for the fans watching at home.
In tandem, of course, we're always looking for that lead driver to run as close to a 100-point qualifying run as possible. They need to hit all the zones, hit all the inside clips. They want to be maintaining pace throughout the course. They want to be at angle, of course, throughout the entire track as well. And while we're watching that lead driver, we're keeping an eye on how that lead driver is using their momentum throughout the course. We want them to really use a lot of commitment throughout the track. And then the chase driver needs to maintain as much proximity to the lead driver as possible. They want to mimic when the lead driver makes transitions. When they move the car into an outside zone, the lead driver or should be shadowing that lead driver throughout the entire run. They don't want to make any compromises either in the chase position, so they don't want to be cutting the line to try to make up proximity if they fall behind, and they don't want to have less angle in the lead driver to try to maintain that proximity either. They want to be mimicking everything that lead driver is doing as much as possible throughout the course. Now, we realize that drivers are going to make mistakes, some errors are going to occur, and that's where we're going to be comparing lead to lead and chase to chase to see who's fulfilling that goals and the lead driver responsibility while making the least compromise. So that's really what is up here, and their job is to do as much as possible.
Bit about some of the more important areas on the course. You guys spent talking about some of the different initiation approaches that we saw yesterday, where the latest initiation should be. We saw guys, because of the variant conditions, some initiating very early, some a little bit later, and then when they come up in the paddock area over the bridge, there's at least one area where there may be a deceleration. So maybe give us a little take on the initiation or the decel area.
As they come up to initiation, there are 3-2-1 cones set up at the opening of the paddock area, and the 1 cone is essentially the latest initiation point. It's a very safe latest initiation point. Most drivers initiating by the 3 cone now, now that the track is dropped and everybody's up to speed a lot better, and they're needing to get themselves slowed down for outside zone 1 with the higher speeds they're achieving. So once they get themselves slowed down to get themselves outside zone 1, that would be our first decel zone in that area, so that the chase driver should expect that lead driver to slow down clearly as they get to angle and get themselves out to outside zone 1. Then as they come over the upper area here where inside clip and then outside 2, there would be a slowdown, slight one, between outside zone, inside clip 1 and outside zone 2. As they approach that zone, they get the car rotated, get it set, and then get back on throttle. At that point, they should be back on throttle through outside zone 2, all the way down through inside zone 3 and down the hill 2 as well. And those are the areas that the chase driver should be paying attention and knowing that lead driver might have a slight decel.
So thankfully, we'll have you up here in the booth doing commentating and giving the fans an insight in exactly what you guys are looking for. One of the things that transpired yesterday, or excuse me, last round in Fuji, was that we saw a little bit of an opening the door with Mad Mike going out in the top 32. So let's talk a little championship, and then we'll get into the top 10 runs of qualifying from yesterday. Mad Mike Woodette had struggled on his first run, and it was a big storyline coming out of Fuji that he was not able to make it out of the top 32. He didn't get that number 1 qualification spot, but right here in number 10 was Tadahiro Fukata. So
looking at Fukata's run, it was a fairly smooth run. He did most of the important parts were done well. A couple little errors there, but nothing major. Andrew Gray here in 9th position. You can see that that big car looks very big on this track, and he in both runs had a little bit of slowdown there coming to outside zone 2. Nian pretty smooth, as you can see, seems to be outpacing Andrew regularly, which is kind of a new thing for Nian. He's doing really well, cleaned up his act quite a bit. And then here in 7th position we have He's been some really see a little bit of heck just more in transition to outside zone 2. Again, moving that really big car around on this fairly tight track for car. And we have Jana Guida in 5th position, 13. Aggressive out there on the track. The track was partially wet and partially dry, as you can see there in this replay. He was a little shallow there going outside zone 2, but overall just the aggressive nature of his run got him to 5th position. In 4th here, Mad Mike Woudet, like you said, he had a really poor first qualifying run, and we talked to him about it afterward. Wide there. Track was really wet, whereas it was dry inside, so that's what caught him off guard. Here in 3rd position, Shinji Minowa, another big JZX90 coming through the course, really smooth, and you can see him drawing a really nice line, maintaining angle through outside zone 3. Look at the angle he has coming down the hill to inside clip 2 to the finish line. Miyoshi, big angle through outside zone 1, really laying angle on head here more than the other drivers that were previous to him. We have Masuyama, who got 1st place. Really settled looking car throughout the run. Great transition right here. Look at that rotation there to angle, and maintained it all the way around, right on the yellow line. Came through outside zone 3 and finished off the run really strong. So he ended up with an 89, I believe, as the 1st place qualifier yesterday, and that was an indication of how difficult this track was to drive yesterday, that an 89 was our top qualifying score. We've seen many drivers in the 90s at previous tracks where the track was dry, it was more consistent, and that's something that we've been battling with over the last couple of days. As you can see today, very dry. We just had a full dry practice session before top 32 starts, so all the drivers should be comfortable in the dry situation that it looks like we're going to have for the beginning of competition here today.
Yeah, this is the first dry session that we've had in entirety. I think long it's been 80, 90, 95% of humidity and rain throughout the weekend so far, and so we're going to get some dry conditions here. We'll see some big smoky runs, and of course we do have a few drivers that are going to get advantages of those buys. Masuyama in particular, along with Miyoshi and also Hoshi, and I believe one other driver, and Mad Mike as well, those top 4, and Yamashita, top 5 guys. So we'll see those guys go right on to the top 16, but we'll set up our first driver here to go through. It'll be Masuyama, and then we'll move on to our first actual battle on number 16, 17th driver, Asano and Amagai.
So as Ryan was saying, we do have approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and that was due primarily to mechanical issues that many drivers had yesterday. And then we also had, I believe it was 2 drivers with multiple or 2 incomplete runs on in their qualifying session, and unfortunately that led to this many bye runs. And it's unfortunate track. It's a lot of fun. If you talk to a guy like Mad Mike, he says it's probably his favorite track of the season just because of the street style nature of this track. This track is used for many other drifting competitions here at Okuibuki. They actually call it the Okuibuki Motor Park, even though it's a ski and snow. So many events here that they refer to it now as a motor park. What they do is come up the hill that we're using currently. They initiate, actually some of the guys initiate way earlier, and they come up the hill into the parking lot that we're using, and instead of looping back around on itself, they come up this little road here that goes even further up the ski hill and get up to the top parking lot. And a lot of it's, some of it is just kind of like a fun track day style thing where cars will blast up the hill, might do a little bit of a drift train, and then once they get all to the top, they turn around and they blast all the way back down to the bottom. So it's a road that essentially goes nowhere. It goes to the little building we're staying in, which is the staff quarters here during the winter time when the staff is playing around here working on the ski hill.
All right, so a practice run here for Masuyama. Impressive driver in qualifying yesterday, getting that #1 spot. And Ryan, we've seen him just look very strong in qualifying overall. Hasn't really necessarily had the overall results that seem to identify with his qualifying driving, but certainly can put down a good tandem when needed. He's in a good position now, moving right on into the top 16.
Yeah, that'll give him a nice boost, getting in automatically to top 16. Like you said, he's able to put down some really great runs in qualifying and practice. In competition, the consistency isn't always there, but definitely a very talented driver. Maybe just needs a little bit more competition seat time, head-to-head with other drivers, and I believe there's a lot of potential there for a pretty great driver.
All right, so our first battle up here, Asano versus Amagai, number 16 and 17th qualifier respectively, up next.
See the driver at the bottom of the hill warming up their tires. After this battle, we'll have Shang and Kita Sheba, and then Andrew Gray and James Tang. So we've got some familiar faces early here, top 32. James Tang, of course, the teammate of, what's his name? Hubert Lee. Hubert Lee is one of our drivers that 2 zeros essentially, a 0 yesterday in qualifying, so did not qualify for competition. They're running very similar RSR FT86 GT86s, and James Tang did qualify. He qualified in 24th, so he'll be going up against Andrew Gray, who qualified in 9th position yesterday.
Both drivers at the line. You can see the light igniting. Lead driver gets out. Through the chicane we go. Asano taking the lead versus Amagai, coming into initiation there for Asano. Amagai a little bit later, now trying to close the door, wrapping around this inside clip. Amagai closing it tight right there, but has to pull angle out. And we do know that from Ryan's description early on, that is one of the areas that chase drivers should be aware of deceleration. So as we take a look at this again, Ryan, walk us through what you saw there between Asano and Amagai.
So when we were talking to the drivers in the meeting last night, we were describing that outside zone 2 approach as a slowdown area. But if you watch Asano here, and it was really, really obvious live, but maybe not in this replay, yeah, you could see a huge e-brake pull and essentially parked his car. And I'd love to know how slow he actually went in that area. The chase driver in that situation, Amagai, really didn't have any kind of room to play there. He was close, as he should have been, but I believe that Asano slowed down too much. That was a little too aggressive. That was a huge e-brake pull. It almost looked like he was trying to park his car there.
Was it outside?
Yeah, it was the area she was 2 described in the drivers meeting. We have a map up in the meeting, and I actually drew on it, and I said, right up until the beginning of the zone should be your slowdown. You could see there, big e-brake pull as he was entering that outside zone.
All right, here we go. Second run. Amagai in the lead position here. You heard from Ryan his interpretation of run number 1. He's able to fill that outside zone, wrapping through that inside clip. Asano trying to close it. Is able to get a little bit closer here, but Amagai is running a nice lead line here. Heading to that third outside zone and swinging down the hill here. And almost some contact there as both drivers blast through the finish line. So run number 1, obviously the biggest factor overall, as we saw that big hiccup there from Asano. But Ryan, on run number 2, what's going on with the two drivers?
Watch Amagai here. He does a good job of outside zone 1. The rear tires through the zone. Nice and close on inside clip. Now watch as he rotates here. It's fluid the way he slowed down, but it was very fluid as he went through there. He wasn't as deep in outside zone 2 as Asano was on his lead, but Asano completely parked and gave Amagai no opportunity whatsoever to chase him through that area. So if you do a comparison, and I believe run one back. See the difference in the vehicle's momentum through that area. And again, Robbie even pointed it out yesterday in the meeting, because in the meetings in Japan, I end up usually doing the English portion, and then Robbie will translate to Japanese. And when he did that translation, he was telling them specifically, do not slow down aggressively, especially at outside zone 2. Kind of like a speed adjustment. And you can see here, huge e-brake, really slowed down. Amagai had nowhere to go in that situation. You really could not say that Amagai was given a fair chance to chase through that area, and his situation pretty responsible for that. So I believe we have all three scores in, and the voting should be coming up very shortly here.
Scores starting to drop as we find out who's going to be moving on to face Masuyama in the top 16. Left for Amagai, right. And one more time there. And Andy Yen goes to Amagai, which gives majority to Amagai. He moves on. I have to imagine, Ryan, that Robbie Nishida probably thought that it was this section of the course maybe was an in-between.
He might have said, even though Amagai was not at fault for straightening or chasing Asano on the first run, on the second run he probably gave Asano a lot of props for being so close and doing a good job in the chase position. So he said, Asano made a real big mistake in the lead, but maybe in his chase he did a good job. So this could go one more time just because of how he did in the chase position. Take that away. Asano, great chase job, but he had a really good lead to follow. So just depends how the judge looks at it, and if they want to give them a second opportunity to go out and try again.
All right, so one battle in the books and a very important battle on deck here with Shang Nian and Kita Sheba.
And why is that an important battle, Ryan?
It's an important battle because Shang is in second place, and the championship has tightened up quite a bit. He would need to really get out of the top 32 to have a fighting chance going into that next round. In fact, he needs to get very deep in competition to fight against Mad Mike. So here we go. Shang taking the lead, our number 8 qualifier. Nice early initiation. Little bit on the inside there, but Kita Sheba also very tight on that first outside zone. Now Shang, better job on that second outside zone, but you can see Kita Sheba not falling. Angle and really was driving straight there, and that looks like that's going to be an incomplete for Kita Sheba.
Yeah, and that is nobody's fault but his own. He really wasn't putting his car in the right place in the chase position. It's so vital on these small courses, especially where there is a whole lot of momentum and speed to play with. The speeds are fairly low here, so you're not really if you slow down too much, you're going to straighten up. It's not like on bigger tracks where if you slow down you might tighten your lineup a bit, but you can keep your momentum going. So you can see right away Kita Sheba's on the inside of outside zone 1. Watch him on the outside zone 2 here, where Nian was right on the line, but Kita Sheba was so far on the inside that he actually had to straighten up because he had positioned himself so poorly, and then he essentially drives straight for the last third of the course. So that'll definitely be an incomplete for Kita Sheba, and that was again due to poor placement. Should have been in a better spot than that. Although I don't see, can you see him right there on the screen? Where did Kita Sheba go?
He's right here.
Oh, he's there. Okay, maybe they're just letting the other cars go by.
So run 1 in the books. A big mistake there from Kita Sheba in the chase position. And we will switch things up with Shang going to the chase. Kita Sheba to lead. Different driving styles here between these two drivers, and certainly Shang will want to temper himself here given what happened to Kita Sheba.
Yeah, so they got themselves turned around, back into position. Something we don't see very often in FDUS is the sponsored car. Neat to see one here with the bright yellow colors.
Yes, many different tire manufacturers represented over here, and this is a Goodyear's Ino battle. Kita Sheba gets out of the gate. as Shang, looks like we unsure what happened there.
Yeah, it looks like Sheba might have some problems. That's why I was wondering where he went after the previous run. I wasn't sure if maybe which was causing his poor chase, and it looks like maybe it was a mechanical issue that was causing some kind of concern.
What's the official word on that? You getting anything?
Sounds like it was a car issue. Yeah, that's all it was. So he made an attempt. He went out there and tried, but looks like not working well enough for him to complete that run.
All right, so let's make it official. Shang avoids getting knocked out in the top 32, one step closer to Mad Mike's lead close with one round left to go in Okayama in just a few weeks. And we will move on to our next battle.
It'll be an interesting one. If you're watching qualifying, if you're watching practice, you're going to know that Andrew Gray, as usual, is a very aggressive and fast driver. You know, he's able to maneuver that big car around pretty well. But James Tang, which is something we pointed out even in the qualifying session, he's not very aggressive going up the hill. So he's not fully committed, it seems like, from the outside going up the hill, which will definitely give Andrew a challenge where, like I said, he's fairly aggressive going up that hill. So it's going to be interesting to see how they both adapt to one another's driving here.
Andrew Gray, known for being a very fast, grippy driver, but also maximizing his time in the zones, and you can see he does just that. And James Tang, we do have a red flag though. So at this point, not sure exactly what the red flag is indicating, but we do have a red flag as James Tang shuts it down here. So we will have to go to the race officials to get a word on what transpired there.
It looks like a mechanical issue from James Tang. The red flag was just a cautionary flag. The lead driver, who is going to be looping back around to the crossover point of the track, so perhaps that's what it is. We have radio contact with Kevin, so we're going to figure out exactly what happened here in a second. We'll let you know as soon as we hear.
And if that is the case, that would be an incomplete for James Tang and put him at a large disadvantage to his lead run. Transpired there. James Tang.
Yeah, it looks like they're hooking James Tang's car up to the tow vehicle there, our little Ford Explorer, and going to get it towed down. It's actually not USDM, it's right-hand drive, but just like to feel at home with that nice Ford Explorer out here. So we're getting him towed off right now. Clearly a mechanical problem with James's car that occurred as he was accelerating up the hill. Maybe it's a gearbox issue or an axle, or who knows what it could be, really.
So officially it'll be an incomplete for James Tang. We'll see if he decides or is able to run the second half of the battle, which would put him in the lead run. Andrew Gray low. He will obviously be aware of the situation here. And we will find our way to the next battle in the meantime. And that actually is not a battle, to be a bye run for Mad Mike Widette to the top 15. So he is keeping pace with his lead in the championship now.
Yeah, it looks like James is playing around with his transmission. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, you can see his rear wheel's locked up. Looks like he might have tried to put it in gear. The rear wheels just locked right up. It kind of stopped the whole process there. So definitely a mechanical problem with his car. I don't know if they'll be able to get that fixed.
So now it looks like we've got a little bit of a bigger issue here. James trying to assess what's going on with his vehicle, getting out of the car.
Yeah, the rear wheel can't, the tow truck can't tow him anymore, so our big, beautiful Formula Drift Japan tow truck flatbed will come out and maybe pick him up if that's what's necessary right now. Must be a diff issue then if that's the case.
So unfortunate turn of events here for James Tang, positive for Andrew Gray. And interestingly enough, because of the qualification position, Ryan, that is going to find, unless something really dramatic happens with Andrew and James Tang, should they run the second half of the battle, that will find them in head-to-head competition in the top 16. We're getting the signal to take a quick commercial break. We'll get James Tang off course and come back here for the G-Shock Presents Formula Drift Japan here at Okuibuki Ski and Snowboard Park. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back here at Okuibuki Ski and Snowboard Park, and James Tang now in the final moments of getting on to the flatbed here. The car had completely locked up the rear end and was in a really precarious position where the truck couldn't get to it at angle, so they've had to bring in some extra equipment to lift it off the ground. So I don't imagine, Ryan, that he's going to make his second pass, but who knows for sure, as we see that the track staff still working on the vehicle, getting it up on the flatbed.
Yeah, they got some go jacks under the rear wheels. They had to straighten the car out because as they were dragging it up there, being locked up in the rear end, it actually slid down the hill sideways. So trying to get it up onto the truck without damaging it as well, which is always kind of important. You don't want to tear the thing apart as you're getting it up there. But it looks like they're slowly getting to the point where they can get it up there.
So, Ryan, so far we've got 3 guys in the top 16. We've got Masuyama, Amagai, Nian. Looks like it'll probably be Gray. Then we've got Mad Mike Widette with a bye, so that moves him into the top 16. Yanagi and Nozawa, Jana Guida with a bye run, and Ino May versus Yamamoto, all strong drivers on the left-hand side of the bracket. The left-hand side of the bracket seems to be a very, very tough bracket in terms of the championship contenders, but you have on the right-hand side of the bracket Fukata and Minowa that could potentially contend on the right-hand side of the bracket, and also Yamashita that it has well in the past. Is there anybody that sticks out to you, like Miyoshi, who's done well in qualifying, that this track seems to suit their driving style more than others?
Yeah, there's the red S15 that has been really doing well. Masuyama, of course, is looking really strong. I'm sure Minowa is pretty happy that he's on the right side of the bracket. Like you said, the left hand's pretty heavily weighted with Nian and Widette and Andrew Gray as well. Masuyama's on there, Jana Guida, Yamamoto. So you've got some heavy competition on the left. The right, in Minowa, even if he gets up against Yamashita, it'll only be in the grade 8 where that would happen, so you can still get that far at least pretty comfortably, and I think that's going to be even Fukata. He would only reach in the top 4 if they both made it that far. So looking at who has a run at the champion for this round, let's call it, because that's what's written on the sheet here. This is kind of a buzzkill, I'm guessing, for Andrew Gray and Nian, who are going to hit each other potentially. It looks like, I don't think James Tang will be able to fix this in 5 minutes, but if he doesn't, that means Andrew Gray and Nian will be going up against each other in top 16, which for them, I'm sure they would hope that they would, if they did go up against each other, be a lot later in competition. That's pretty to be going up against one another. And then Widette, if he makes it to the grade 8, he could potentially be against Jana Guida, Ino May, or Yamamoto. So we might end up with another RX-7 battle, rotary battle in the grade 8 right there. So we have some interesting battles that can occur. It just depends how all of this is going to play out. And the first challenge we have right now is getting this car up on the flatbed so that we can keep going. This is proving to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, the FD Japan crew is typically very, very quick at remedying these situations, so you have to imagine something pretty substantial is going on here where the vehicle is not able to get all 4 wheels onto that flatbed. I'd love to know exactly what's going on. You see Kevin Wells down there as well, but this series is known for its quick moving pace, generally speaking.
Very efficient. So
yeah, having this delay in the action here because of what's going on with James Tang's vehicle is kind of an outlier, in generally speaking. But as we look ahead to the remainder of the competition, it's worth mentioning that the last and final round is 1 week to the round of the U.S. Irwindale event. What can fans expect out of Okayama? What have you seen historically, and if you can give us a description of that track? I know it's very fast-paced.
It is a fast-paced track, which is a very big change from what we're dealing with here. It's much more spread out. It is a track that was designed for very I believe cars go to test from time to time, and they've done, I believe it's MotoGP at that track potentially. In quite a few years ago. I could be wrong about that, but it was built for high level of competition. It's a long sweeping right with a quick transition around kind of on a long straightaway. We've got a manji that the drivers have to do there, get themselves through the straightaway, and then connect to a crossover, kind of like a little connecting road between both sides of the track, which is generally where we will see some crashes, because it is a very narrow area that the drivers are coming from high speed down to pretty low speed, but they've got to really balance the speed with the line that they're running, because it's an area you need to be very precise, and we've had a couple of cars really get damaged badly on that track, but it's much faster than what we're dealing with here today. So it's going to be in stark contrast to this round, and like you said, it's right before Irwindale, and then of course Irwindale is going to be really exciting. We have Texas coming up next week. We'll see what happens with the championship at that track. Another fast track that we're going to be driving on that is very similar in layout to the previous round at FDUS, which was St. Louis. It's going to be pretty high speed as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how that championship plays out in the US as well. We know that we've got some very talented drivers there. I'm so happy to see this car up on the flatbed right now.
Yes, extreme relief there. That was the longest we've ever seen a vehicle stay on course in a broken situation. So
look at James Tang. He's committed with that helmet.
Yes.
Not taking that thing off. I don't know where he thinks he's going right now.
So we'll get the car off course, and have we heard anything from the tech staff on whether or not James is going to try to fix the vehicle? Or are we going to move on? Any idea?
Well, the tech staff was probably very busy with just trying to get that thing on there, so I will confer with the radio holder over here and see what he has to say.
All right, so James Tang finally moving off course. We've got a clear course now, and we'll either see a by run from Andrew Gray if James Tang competition will move on to Mad Mike Widett and his by run.
All right, so they are going to call a competition timeout, see what's going on, see if they can fix whatever it is that's going on with that car.
So James Tang looking to gamble a little bit here, and it looks like we are also in a little bit of a gambling situation as a light sprinkle has come down, Ryan.
Yep.
The clouds are surrounding us, but not really right above us, and there's still some rain that is now starting to come on down, which is going to make things a little bit interesting here.
Well, they've been dealing with track changes since we got here on Thursday, so this is nothing new for them, I guess, at this point. Practice was wet Friday with some dry at the end. Yesterday we had qualifying with some practice, also very mixed, and we expected the same thing today. We started off dry, you know, we couldn't expect that to last much longer. Very nice.
Whoa, what was that?
That was hopefully not
Flash.
lightning.
Yeah.
Flash from a camera, I hope. So you can see Andrew Gray down the hill waiting, probably wondering what's going on. I don't know how long it's going to take to get that car of James's off the flatbed, but that 5-minute time for the competition timeout will not start until the car is on the ground, so that's something we're going to have to wait a minute for.
Well, we are hearing Mad Mike's vehicle warm up in the background, which probably means we are going to move Andrew Gray off of the start line and move on to Mad Mike Widett. And there is Mad Mike in the burnout box.
The one nice thing about his car, very distinctive sound. You always know when it's him.
Yes, we can hear him at early hours in the morning.
Getting that rotary warmed up.
And for those of you that have not been following in great detail the Formula Drift Japan Championship, Mad Mike Widett had won the first 2 rounds of the series at at Suzuka and at Ebisu.
Did he have a perfect event in there as well?
He may have had one perfect event. I think he had another one that was really close. Actually, those were 2 perfect events, if I remember correctly. And then in Fuji Speedway, he had a mechanical, which turned out to be as simple as a fuse. And so there's been a running joke. He's been carrying the fuse around in his pocket, and if he wins the championship, he's going to glue it or paste it to his championship trophy. But that, as we mentioned early in the show, in the opening, that is what has given the open door to Andrew Gray and to Shang Nian, most importantly, who's in second place right now. But now that we've seen that the setup for them is looking like Nian is going to potentially face Andrew Gray in the top 16, that could very well decide championship positioning. As now we see Mad Mike taking his run on course. Oh boy. That was an example of serious. That was an example of the changes to the course that happened with just a little bit of rain. You saw Mad Mike coming up the hill with a lot of momentum, almost taking it into that rock wall there, and protected by those foam blocks. It has really helped a lot of vehicles sustain more aesthetic damage than structural damage, but hit it hard enough, and you can certainly destroy the car, and we've seen that in the past there. So Mad Mike Widette will chalk up his bye run and move on into the top 16, and now we will move right along to Yanagi versus Nozawa, your number 13 and number 20 qualifier respectively.
See Mad Mike coming back up the hill. He's going to go back to his pit area because he will not have to come back out until 16. So he has a little bit of time. But that was a very committed run there for a bye run. He took a big chance.
And very little wind in the area right now, so the rain is pretty much coming straight down. It's not coming in towards us like it was yesterday.
Thankful for that.
But after dry practice this morning and a few runs in dry conditions, now we are going to have to contest with wet conditions. And as we mentioned yesterday, Ryan, a lot of times in this particular course, having it be either wet or dry is the preferred because of the consistency. And we'll see how these drivers deal with it as Yanagi initiates, and he's got the car pull it out, and it almost looks like both drivers made mistakes at the same time there. So we'll have to go back and take a look at that, but you can certainly see the role that this slick course is playing on both drivers as now they wrap around that final outside zone and into that last inside clip through the finish line is Yanagi and Nozawa. So Ryan, we'll want to get your impression of what happened there. First pass, it looked like Yanagi was way over angled and had to pull out, but Nozawa seemed like as well.
Yeah, and it's always a fact was one for the looks like the car can be responsible for straightening up there. The lead car over rotated and essentially parked right in front of him, and you can see that Yanagi almost over rotated at outside zone 2 as well. It is very slippery out there, and they're having to kind of adjust their driving to the new slippery conditions that they're having to contend with. So it's, again, like you said, dealing with the inconsistencies, but if the rain keeps up, even if it's light as it is now, at least the track will be consistent for them going forward. It's just a matter of getting used to that level of grip that's available to them. But it's always hard when you're going to run up the hill as they are right now and initiate not knowing how much grip there is.
So here we go, second pass. Nozawa out front, Yanagi keeping it close here after initiation and through this first inside clip. Yanagi edging in here. He's going to stay on that inside line as Nozawa takes that deeper line into that outside zone. Yanagi pretty close here, but Nozawa is going to finish up this run just getting that third hash mark on that final inside clip. And the battle is over as we take a look at the second run here and the replay. Ryan, what are you marking down there? What are you seeing so far?
Well, Nozawa, I think, did a really great job in the lead position. He had a slight hesitation on initiation, but nothing major. He got out to outside zone 1. It is a slowdown area, so totally legit doing that. And then you can see through the rest of the run, he's putting the car where he needs to put it. He's on outside zone 2. Did a good job there. You can see Yanagi right there with them, running a little bit tighter line, but staying in proximity and mimicking him pretty well. Nozawa gave him a good lead run to follow. He was out wide, he was where he was supposed to be, and he gave Yanagi room to position his car in the chase position. So not a bad job from Yanagi. Pretty good job from Nozawa in the lead. And again, Nozawa can't be held responsible for what happened in the chase position where he straightened up behind Yanagi. Yanagi almost came to a complete stop there in outside zone 1 where he over-rotated. So Nozawa did a good job of avoiding contact with him at that point, and you can't really fault him for anything other than that.
All right, so let's make it official. Nozawa versus Yanagi. Left for Nozawa, 1, 2, and 3. All judges agree, and Nozawa will move on into the top 16. He will face Mad Mike Woodette. On the line, looks like Ino May and Yamamoto. But first, we're going to see Jana Guida and his byrun. Very impressive young driver. I believe he just turned 19. Very, very young, aggressive, and looked great in yesterday's qualifying. Got himself a 5th place position. So here he goes. A good opportunity here to test the conditions. And it looked like that little bit of rain has now ceased. So we are seeing that, at least for the time, but it'll give Jana Guida a good opportunity to test the course in these conditions, though he will not see it again until the top 16. He is done for the top 32. So there is Ino May and Yamamoto, number 12 and 21st qualifier. They will complete the left bracket after we determine what happens with James Tang, who is currently under a 5-minute competition timeout, and have to imagine that is expired. So we'll probably be hearing shortly what happened to him, whether or not he's going to make it back out or not.
He has less than 2.5 minutes on his 5-minute competition timeout remaining, so doesn't have a whole lot of time left. Hopefully they're using their time wisely.
The way that works is once the vehicle is actually off of the flatbed and into their pit, they can start working on it, and the competition timeout will start from there. And obviously what we saw with the rear wheels locking up on James, I have to imagine it was maybe just as problematic getting the car off.
They are performing a diff swap, so they're changing the differential on that car in hopes that will rectify the issue. Clearly it was a diff that seized up. You could see that the rear wheels were dragging, even though the car was in neutral and clutch in and all that. So it's definitely, that's the issue, and they're going to hopefully get that fixed. They don't have a whole lot of time left, though. Probably about a minute and a half left by this point in time. So I don't know how far along they are, but we're going to find out fairly soon whether he made it or not.
All right, so back to the action here. Our final battle on the left-hand side of the bracket in the top 32. Ino May versus Yamamoto. Light is about to go. Get this.
It's very, very slippery out there. You can see everybody scattering out there in the paddock area, trying to run for cover.
All right, let's do this, boys. All right, there's the light. It goes off. Lead car can leave. Ino May, number 88, in the lead. Yamamoto chasing him down. Coming into initiation. Very wet course here. It's gone completely wet, but he manages it really well in that first outside corner. Yamamoto is back a bit here, and he's going to take that tighter line, almost straighten out a little bit. Oh, and there a little bit of angle reduction from Ino May, and another mistake from Yamamoto, who shuts it down. So seeing these drivers have a few issues here, but it seemed like Ino May was in the better control overall, Ryan, as we take a look here at the run number 1.
Yeah, Ino May's been doing some pretty great runs, especially when we were watching today. Nice little flick entry, pretty committed, and considering the weather conditions for that one night. Falling a little bit at this point. As soon as Ino May transitions here, Yamamoto does not. He straightened up quite a bit there, pretty serious, and had a couple of hiccups right there. So you can see in the lead position, Ino May has a slight angle adjustment at outside zone 3, goes a little bit lower on the angle. Yamamoto from that point on just sort of drives through to the finish line. So definitely, I would say in my eyes, an incomplete from Yamamoto. Ino May did a great job in the lead. He only had one little error there at outside zone 3 where the angle was reduced. Wasn't a straight, but definitely a reduction in angle as he was coming close to outside zone 3. So in terms of a lead run, Yamamoto's got to be pretty precise here to outdo what Ino May did in his lead.
Here we go, the lead run from Yamamoto. Ino May staying pretty close here. Really slow and deliberate initiation from Yamamoto. And Ino May has to make an adjustment as well, coming to that first inside clip. And now wrapping around to that second outside zone. A little bit of angle reduction there from Ino May, trying to manage the grip levels on this course as Yamamoto slowly creeps to that final inside clip. And we pass through the finish line.
Yeah, so if you watch what Yamamoto is doing in the lead position here, now compare that to what you just saw from Ino May. Watch his commitment coming up the hill. You can see that Yamamoto's a little more coming in with. Look at him. He's a little slower. He missed out because he didn't have enough momentum coming up the hill. As he comes by inside clip 1, did a pretty good job, but entirely missed outside zone 2. Not even close. So his level of commitment is not there. He's not able to push the car to the edge of the track, and it looked like that's because he's afraid of overstepping the track boundaries. So not really confident in the amount of grip that he has, and not able to take the car to the edge of control as he did. He was leading, and of course Ino May did an okay job considering the lead that he had to follow. So you can see there that all three of us have chosen Ino May. So he will move on to top 16.
So unanimous victory there for Ino May as the rain continues to come down now here up in the mountains at Okuibuki.
I am hearing that James Tang is out, unfortunately. He was not able to repair the differential. He wasn't able to replace it in the time allotted, so he will be out of competition, which means that Andrew Gray will move on. And he will move on to the top 16.
And there we are seeing Gray at the line, so it is official, as you said, Ryan, James Tang going out of competition. And Andrew Gray will now get a shakedown lap in this ever-changing weather. You can see just how slow it has become. What a good opportunity here for Andrew.
Very slippery out there right now.
And a lot of grip laid down during practice, so...
Well, now you've got water on top of rubber, so it's going to let that rubber cleaned off the track. I'm sure that'll happen as we go through the competition if the track does stay wet. So it's going to be track again. It's just a racetrack. When the conditions change from from dry to wet, there's a wet line that you're trying to stay off of the dry line because it is, while it is grippy in the dry, it becomes very slippery in the wet. So typically you try to cross over the dry line as quickly as possible and get to areas where there's more grip. In drifting, unfortunately, you can't do that. You've got to run on the exact same line, running on the slipperiest part of the track, essentially, and that, it's covered in rubber and oil and whatever else has been laid down by all these cars continually driving over the same portion of the track. So it doesn't make it easy, especially when you get out really wide to where there's paint that hasn't been driven on that we've painted out on the track there. So it makes it a bit of a challenge for these guys, but they will get that slippery, I guess, coating, if you will, the rubber and everything that's on the surface there, kind of worn off the more and more drivers drive over it.
So next group of drivers heading out for their head-to-head matchups here in the top 32. It'll be Miyoshi and his Byron first, and Hiroshima and Taminisha.
Gesundheit, Ryan.
Thank you. Miyoshi at the line, getting the call that we are ready to go. Light is on and going here. He will now pass. Getting a shakedown run here as well. Miyoshi, one of the most exciting drivers that we've seen this weekend in terms of overall performance, but what he's really been great at is big angle on that first outside zone, initiating from that third standing cone, or the first standing cone that he leads up to, and then big angle into that outside zone. Not going to be doing that right now, but we'll see how things change as we move on into competition. He gets his bye run, and he moves forward.
Yeah, he's very smooth. He's very confident in that car, able to position it where he wants to, and gets to very high degrees of angle that he's able to maintain throughout the entire course. From transition to transition, you can see it looks like it's on full lock everywhere he's going. It looks great. He's able to fill zones with that amount of angle. It's pretty impressive to watch. So it's going to be good to see. Interesting to see him in top 16. He'll be going up against the winner of the next battle, which is either Hiroshima or Enishi. So we will find out soon who he will be battling in top 16.
9:48 a.m. Japan time, wherever you're watching from. We'll finish up the top 32. We'll have a halftime break, which will be there, and we'll come back and have top 16 opening ceremonies, and then top 16 will be live streaming all the way to the finals, as we see Enishi and Hiroshima up at the line now for our next battle. Miyoshi back to the paddock. Left side of the bracket is done.
I believe Enishi, this is his first time competing in Formula Drift Japan, is it not?
It is the first time that I recognize his name, so it's very possible that is true.
The name and the car, right?
Yep. So they are off. Number 67, number 21, Hiroshima versus Enishi. Drivers coming up with a bit of caution. You can see Enishi giving a bit of space here, trying to manage. Oh, and you can see already reduction of angle there, loses it right out one. Hiroshima's pretty consistent. Looks like he has a bit of a hiccup there, but no real chasing going on here from Enishi. As you see, he was playing it a bit too conservative, and then Hiroshima way out. He also had that reduction of angle coming into outside zone one. So Ryan, obviously the conditions playing a role here in the aggressive nature of the driving, but take us through here, run number one.
Chase car can jump the start light, as Enishi did right there, but then he fell way back. So he either overestimated how fast he was going to be going in the beginning and then dropped back. I don't know what happened there, but he never really was any kind of part of this tandem battle anywhere throughout the course. Hiroshima in the lead position there did have a couple of corrections on angle. Nothing to give an incomplete over, I don't believe. It's just some pretty big corrections there. But in terms of the chase driver, Enishi, there was no chase really to be had there. That could be called an incomplete chase or inactive chase from him. So not really what you're looking to do in the chase position. This rain is coming and going. It just stopped and now hard again. It is going to be wet for all.
Run number two, and a bit too aggressive in his lead run there, not able to hold the angle. Enishi will have an incomplete, and it'll be Hiroshima moving on. We'll make it official. Unfortunately, not able to finish the course here in his lead run. And Ryan, obviously the course, a major factor for Enishi, first time driving here in FD Japan.
Yeah, definitely. He seemed to be doing pretty well in practice. Enishi qualified in 18th, so not a bad showing for his first time drift competition. In track was not through practice, so never really had a good either wet or dry track to drive on yet in his time here. So all three of us choose Hiroshima, clearly.
All right, so that battle is in the books. We'll move on to Hoshi, our number 7 qualifier. He's also going to have a bye run. We started the weekend with about 34 drivers. We had 6 drivers that actually had to bow out because of mechanical, or they couldn't make it because of the earthquake that happened up in Hokkaido. We had 1 driver that actually did make it down. He drove 30 hours here and was absolutely destroyed by the time he got here. So,
and not to mention the typhoon that hit last week as well.
Yeah, so it's been quite a weather escapade here, including here this weekend with the rain that has haunted us pretty much since we got here on Thursday. And obviously now it's playing a role here in the top 32. We'll see what happens in the top 16. Here is Hashi in his bye run, moving on into the top 16. Next pair up, Tadahiro Fukata and Yoshino, our number 10 and 23 qualifier. You can see Fukata there. Very popular in the Formula Drift Japan Championship. And Yoshino is your favorite car, is that right? Is that he's the
R32 sedan, yeah. It's a very basic car, very simple setup, nothing too flashy, nothing too high-tech, if you will, but it just works. And it's a great chassis. I used to drive one in Canada. I had one in 2006. It was my first one. And I had another one after that. I had a sedan, and the sedan was the one I liked more. I enjoyed driving that car a lot. I think they're a great chassis. RB20, probably not the strongest engine that I had back in the day, but guys put RB25s, or they go nuts and put a 2J in one of those things. But great chassis, a lot of fun to drive, very forgiving. It was a great car to learn in. And if I could insure one in Canada, and I know people are going to tell me, oh, you can insure them, but I'd love to have another one. It's just hard to find insurance for those things, so unless you want to make it a pure track car, kind of hard to own one. I see them running around somehow. I don't know where these people get insurance, but they do. Look at that thing. It's beautiful.
So Yoshino doing whatever he can to get some heat in the tires here. We see some of the other drivers off camera heading down. Looks like Minowa as well as Yamashita. And we'll get this battle underway here as soon as he's done with his, not so much of a burnout, but more of just trying to get some heat in the tires there. Full wet conditions now, no question about it. And it will most likely remain that way for the rest of the top 32. The time of the course drying from wet to dry without rainy conditions, he seems to be about 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour, without drivers on track. With drivers on track, maybe a little bit quicker, but great draining system here. It's just the rain has been very consistent.
I'm glad we got our dry hike in this morning, though, Ryan. That was really pleasant.
That was very exciting.
Very exciting. Here we go.
All right, so Fukata, Yoshino, top 32 battle. Fukata heading up the hill. He initiates. They're able to skate through. Oh, and a big loss of angle there for Yoshino. Not able to hold it. Fukata will have an advantage if he can maintain through this lead run here. Heads to outside zone 3, very slow speeds, and another reduction in angle from Yoshino as both drivers now come through the finish line. It'll be 2 big mistakes for Yoshino in the chase position, with Fukata showing some of the veteran's ability and able to keep it relatively clean out front.
So a couple of errors there from Yoshino that you had already mentioned. One of them was right after outside zone 1. So you see Fukata getting the angle. Yoshino's really wide, but watch Yoshino here, opposite drift. So that's an incomplete right off the bat. That's on the list. I don't even have to make any kind of mental gymnastics to make that one stick. That was clear Right here, what he does is actually tap the wall, and it'll reduce the angle to the point where he almost goes pretty, but he lived anyway because of his previous opposite drift, which would be an incomplete right away. But he did get wide out to that outside zone 3 area, a little wall tap, straighten himself out. He is going to have to put together a decent lead run just to compare with Fukata's lead run. And then Fukata, for Yoshino to do any kind of progression here, would have to straighten himself or do some kind of incomplete himself in the chase.
Second half of the battle underway. Yoshino in the lead position. Fukata in the chase. Both drivers this time get through that outside zone. Fukata trying to surge there, has to back off. You can see water splattering all over as these drivers go through some areas that have a bit of standing water or moving water through the course as it drains off. Yoshino makes an adjustment with the front wheels there, but Fukata is able to stay relatively consistent. And given those mistakes in run number 1, you have to imagine it is going to go in the direction of Fukata.
I think you're right, Brian. So Fukata does a good job here of staying within proximity. He never really let him get away. Does a nice initiation, not really the big angle initially though, and then really tight line here to inside clip 1. Didn't really go wide all the way through outside zone 1. Transitions, and you can see he's not really in outside zone 2, but maintaining angle throughout. Fukata's there, more or less, right behind him. A little bit of separation here. Then you can see Yoshino make an adjustment. Bit of an issue there with his angle coming towards inside clip 2 before the finish line. But I think Fukata's going to get this one as he was cleaner in the lead and in the chase.
So all 3 judges go to the direction of Fukata. No mystery there. And we will move on to our next battle, which will be actually by run here. You know what? Number 3 qualifier, a very strong and popular driver in the Japan Series. New vehicle this year. Looks very strong. And has pretty consistently been a top 5 driver for some time. He'll go out there and get a shakedown lap here in the wet conditions. Still coming down pretty strong here, as you can see. Minowa testing the grip levels. An excellent driver overall.
He used to be driving that 370Z.
Yep.
Last season, did really well in that. This season, of course, he's driving his own car, the one that he has been driving for many, many years. He's driven that in many different series on a lot of different tracks all over Japan. Had a lot of seat time in that car. He took me for my first ride on Minami at Ebisu in one of his battle cars, missile cars we like to call them, but another JZX90, and he blew my mind. That first ride I went on that track was amazing. He's a very talented driver, no fear whatsoever, and he's doing really well this season in his old faithful, I guess you can call it. And
that's what you used to have up there, right? You had a 90?
I did have a JZX90, yeah. It was a chaser with a Mark II front end. Very odd looking thing, but it worked really well. So him and I drove a little bit together up there. I learned a lot up there, thanks to him and guys like Sunaga. He taught me a lot. Never really told me anything, but just watching what they're doing and following them around, fascinating stuff.
All right, our next battle up after the bye run there from Minowa is Ogane versus Benjamin Chiam in the wide body Supra, and you see the FD RX-7 there. 1 of 3 this weekend in competition, as we mentioned, including Mad Mike Widet, who already went on the left-hand side of the bracket if you're just now joining us. Ogane, I think Benjamin Chiam down. Ultra driver.
That's fast.
Little less cautious. Oh, and Ogane over-rotates it. He was definitely coming up with a lot of momentum. It looks like Benjamin Chiam saw that there was going to be a spin there. There will not be independent incidents. Let's take a look at this ride. You can see he was coming up the hill with quite a bit of momentum and almost looked like he might have been able to save it, but just not able to get back on the gas and not enough grip.
Yeah, he was coming up with a lot of momentum, a lot of commitment. Good for him. I like the spunk. Look at that. He's not holding back at all. He probably would not have hit the wall, or if he did, not very hard if those foam blocks were not there, but it's nice to have those foam blocks, you know? They really do. any severe damage that could occur by hitting that wall. So good for him for pushing really hard and giving us a bit of a show. You know, it's an exciting driver. He's usually very aggressive in that car, and it's one of 3 rotors we have in FD Japan this round. We have him, Mad Mike, and Yamamoto. So it's a lot of fun to watch. He's a job in that car, the Waco's car. So now he will be chasing Benjamin Chiam, and we'll see what happens here as they get themselves repositioned. The rain is coming down pretty steadily right now, so that track is showing no signs of drying up. Again, it's hard to, you know, I don't know when his last lap was, but probably in practice, which was still dry, I'm guessing. That means that that was his first wet lap today. So trying to drive in a way that is not too conservative, but not too over the top, and it looks like he went just a little bit over the top.
Big opportunity here for Benjamin Chiam in the lead position. Just needs to get a solid run without. And Benjamin Chiam initiates very late there.
Very late.
And there Ogane reduces angle once again, but Benjamin Chiam not getting off to the greatest start. You can see Ogane pushing the pace here, making that mistake right before inside clip 1, but you have to wonder how the judges are going to interpret his initiation. A very late initiation from Benjamin Chiam, and a huge opportunity for him potentially at risk here. Let's take a look at this again, Ryan, and walk us through what happened.
So you've got, like I was just saying, you can either go too fast, spin out and go off the track, or drive too conservatively and not initiate where you're supposed to and go very, very slowly and hold up the chase car, which is essentially what Benjamin did right there. And you have to wonder which one is worse. In either situation, you're not fulfilling the lead driver responsibilities. You're not doing what you're supposed to up in the lead position. You're not initiating by the latest initiation point. I haven't seen anybody initiate after the 1 cone. Most drivers are initiating by the 3 cone. So Benjamin definitely made a very large mistake there. You can't really Ogane for making errors behind him in that situation.
So Benjamin Chiam playing a very risky game here, given the opportunity that he had after the Ogane incomplete. We'll see how the judges treat that. That was, as you said, Ryan, one of the later initiations that we've seen past the last standing cone, and there are 3 of them that are spaced out by about 30 feet each, so there's a nice window of opportunity to initiate where you're comfortable at. And look at this, already coming in, and they are going to go one more time on this, and you guys all 3 are in agreement, Ryan, and I guess it will be because of the initiation.
Yes, it was a huge stall up. Again, we say that the initiation running up to outside zone 1 post-initiation would be a slowdown area. Clearly the drivers are getting the car to angle or on handbrake, they're on the foot brake trying to get the car positioned. Yes, we understand there's going to be a slowdown, but what he did was very, very late initiation, got to angle very slowly, and was actually at angle in the opposite direction a little bit as he was coming up the hill in a very late fashion as well. So not what you should be doing in the lead position, and as I said, which one's worse, overdriving or underdriving? And either way, it's a big mistake, and you're not fulfilling what you're supposed to do in the lead. So watching Yamashita here, he's driving very aggressively, but very well right now in that by run that he's doing. Maybe having no pressure, being able to go out there and push a little bit is helpful, but it's showing that the track still can be driven at speed with commitment and some pretty aggressive throttle application. So Yamashita's doing a great job there of showing what this track can still be driven at despite this very wet weather. So for Ogane and Benjamin Chiam, another opportunity as they will have a one more time battle. Both drivers making some mistakes, with Benjamin Chiam and that very, very late initiation and the incomplete run on the lead from Ogane. And in that case where you have 2 incompletes in the lead, there's nothing to compare it to, as opposed to 2 incompletes in the chase. You'd have the lead runs to look at. And so that's going to be a one more time. And we're going to get right to that as both drivers are at the line right now. Goes fast.
Ogane, I have to imagine no tire changing.
You got it.
And here we go, the one more time battle. Quickly back to the line, both these drivers. Now they know what they need to do here and how the conditions are. Ogane this time approaches it a bit more conservatively, but is able to fill that outside zone. Benjamin Chiam driving with him, keeping pace here, a little bit tight on that inside clip. Nice job by Ogane to get to that outside line. Benjamin Chiam surging forward, has to back off for a second. Ogane out to the outside zone. Benjamin Chiam a little bit less angle here as he tries to take that tight line to gain some proximity back from Ogane. So a much better job in the lead from Ogane. Nice job at various times in the chase position by Benjamin Chiam. But Ryan, your evaluation here on run number 1.
You can see that Ogane in the lead position did a much better job of getting his car positioned in the right, with the right momentum, let's say, coming up the hill. Gets himself out to outside zone 2. Benjamin's doing a really great job in the chase here of maintaining proximity and being aggressive right until that point where he got a little bit too close and had to back off a little bit. But overall, pretty good drive from both of these guys. No major mistakes from either one. A couple of little small things here and there, but overall, this is what we're looking to do when we ask for one more time, is giving the drivers the opportunity to put together a much better lead and a much better chase. That's what we're looking for, clearly, is some good driving from both drivers. They both made errors, and it wasn't very pretty the first time, so here's your second opportunity, and Ogane did a great job of taking advantage of that opportunity, let's say, because he did spin originally and could have easily lost that first battle due to that. But Benjamin Chiam pushed really hard, did a good job in the chase, so now they're going to have to outdo each other in the opposite position.
Run number 1 is done. Here's run number 2. Benjamin Chiam in the lead position. Gets a better initiation this time. Now he floats it out. He gets back on throttle. Ogane surges towards that exit of the outside zone 1. Good battle here as Ogane takes a slightly tighter line to get that proximity. Tries to get door to door as Benjamin Chiam reaches that zone. Ogane keeping the pressure on, but he's on a tighter line here. So the judges will have to evaluate that overall. And you gotta say that was a much better battle overall between these two drivers. A good back and forth. And Ryan, does anything stand out to you here in run number 2?
Well, I like Ogane's aggressiveness in the chase position. He's pushing really hard and trying to stay close. We tell them in the drivers' meeting, stay close as much as you can throughout the entire run. He's making some compromises online, as he didn't get out to outside zone 1 as well as Benjamin did, but Benjamin misses outside zone 2 entirely, but Ogane is right there with him, nice and close. Even though Benjamin's not on the right line, Ogane is pushing really hard to stay close to him. You can see him coming down the hill here, same thing. Hits that inside clip of the right front corner of the bumper, so not terrible, but not great either for his positioning. So watch here again. He's a little bit on the inside there on outside zone 1, Ogane is. Benjamin's going to miss outside zone 2 almost entirely. He's way inside. From that perspective, doesn't look as much, but he was not in the box at all. Ogane is nice and close, and Benjamin right there drops quite a bit of angle as he's coming by outside zone 3, and Ogane just kind of runs over the base. So overall, pretty good drive from both of them, and we'll see which way we all go on the decision.
All right, so the weather now starting to change a little bit. See some sunlight peeking through. Looks like the rain has stopped, but still wet conditions as we wait the judges' results here in our second to last battle in the top 32. One for Ogane, another one more time, and another one for Ogane. So Robbie Nishida one more time, Ryan Lantain and Andy Yen go to Ogane, who gets the win by split decision.
So we got one battle to go.
Daisuke Hara and Morozumi are 11 and 22 ranked drivers from qualifying. Up next at the line, picking up the pace here in competition in our last battle in the top 32. And here we go, Hara, early initiation. Get to that outside zone. Nice job there. A little bit tighter from Morozumi as Hara looks pretty smooth out front. Nice transition back around. Gets to that outside zone, and a very tight approach by Morozumi, who gets choked up by taking that tighter line. Trying to keep angle in the front wheels, but struggling to do so. And on the other side of things, Hara did a great job out front overall, Ryan.
I really like Hara's initiation up to outside zone 1. Did a nice job there. Morozumi putting himself in some bad positions today here in the chase position. So look, Hara gets through outside zone 1 pretty nicely. Could have been slightly deeper, but in there pretty good considering the conditions. And then watch Morozumi here as he transitions. Very low angle, very poor line through there. Gets himself in the very bad spot. Has to straighten up and try to get himself back to angle a couple of times here. Going way inside like that is never going to be a benefit when the track is this tight. There's nowhere to go. You cannot maintain enough momentum if you slow down that much through that area to keep the car at angle with the amount of grip that these guys have in these cars. So you do need to stay wide there. And I would say that a slight lack of proximity would probably be better in that situation than going on the inside and trying to maintain proximity but straightening up as Morozumi did.
Morozumi needs a big one here. Our final battle in the top 32. Big angle by Morozumi. Hara makes an adjustment in the chase position. Morozumi comes through that first inside flip. He's got a tail light hanging from the rear of the vehicle as Hara takes a bit of a tighter line there. Morozumi looking better in the lead position, but remember how much he struggled leaving outside zone 2. Hara a little bit of distance here, but now starting to close the door and is able to get right there through the finish line. And Ryan, is anything stand out to you here in the second half of that battle between Hara and Morozumi?
Yeah, in the lead, Morozumi did okay. He had a couple of errors that he made. He wasn't in the right position in a couple of spots, but outside zone 1 did a great job here, right on that line, left it at the right spot. You can see Hara trying to maintain proximity in the rear. There has a bit of a bobble. And Morozumi did not terrible on outside zone 2. He's right on the kind of the innermost line there. Could have been deeper there. And from this point on, I like that at least Hara was mimicking his line and his angle. Although it wasn't super close, he wasn't trying to take a tight line, maintain proximity. Pretty good job from Hara there, even though he went a little bit tight on outside zone 2. I think it looks like he's going to get the win from all three of us.
Daisuke Hara gets the win there, number 85, heading back to the paddock, and that wraps it up for us here in the top 32. We will have a break for halftime, and right now it is 10:14 Japan time. We're actually not back until top 16 until 1:30 Japan time. If you want to know what time that is where you live, head to our Instagram page or any of our social media channels, and we have all the time zones laid out for you. So the top 16 is still a battle for the championship. The left side of the bracket is going to see top contenders go out early because we've got Shang and Andrew Gray in the top 16. We've got Mad Mike Widette and Nozawa also in the top 16. We've got Fukata and Hoshi and Minowa and Ogane that you just saw, as well as Yamashita and Hara. Any major battles for you, Ryan, that you're looking forward to in the top 16?
Well, what I was just looking at is the lack of upsets in top 32. There were only two, really. There was Amagai that beat Asano, so that's 17th that beat 16th. And Nozawa, who qualified 20th, beat Yanagi, who was 13th. So the weather generally has a bigger effect on upsets like that, but in this case it wasn't that serious. And of course, Nian and Gray, that's going to be the big one, I think, in top 16. And either one of those drivers could go all the way to the finals, but one of them will be absolutely knocked out here in the top 16.
All right, well, that wraps it up for us here in the top 32. Once again, we are back at 1:30 JST 15. So check our social media channels to figure out what time that is in your part of the world. Thanks for joining us here at round 4 at Okuibuki Ski and Snowboard Park. This is the G-Shock Presents Formula Drift Japan. Right after this break, we'll be back for the top 16.
Bye.
we're afraid to walk. Talk like we don't care who takes notice. Stay focused, put enough years in and no rhyme. Wear a watch taking on borrowed time. Move at a pace so afraid to
伝統と革新、小倉クラッチのテクノロジーを凝縮、チャンピオンを取るためのクラッチ、小倉レーシングクラッチ ORC。
クオリティオブジャパニーズクラフトマンシップ、グリッド。
What's up guys, it's Frederick Ospo and I use RSR suspension on all my drift cars. I love